Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. First, I want to thank Wendy Valencia for organizing today's collab and for inviting me to participate. I'm going to link down in the description below to her channel and to all the channels of all the other frugal and financial YouTubers who will be participating. For me, 2018 has been a really rough year. And although I'm overall positive about it, it has been very difficult. So for me, even though I do look at the entire year of 2018 as a positive, I haven't made a whole lot of progress on a lot of things. But for me, it's more the fact that I survived these things that I look at as wins. For me, my big wins for the year were number one, that I survived on self-employment for quite a while. That was from January 11th of the year to right around mid-May when I started getting my pay coming in from Lyft. Now, technically, really, my new Lyft position that I started in May and I'm still in is also self-employment because I'm being paid as a 1099 contractor. But I think it's a little less maybe self-employment than it was when I was fully a driver. But however you look at that, for the first time ever, I supported myself by myself, and I was able to be self-employed. And I think for most people who are used to traditional work and are jumping into something like that, that's kind of a scary prospect. But for me, it was even more so because I basically had no savings, no anything, and I just jumped out there and I was able to catch myself. So I'm very proud of that. And the second thing that really has just kind of amazed me when I sit back and I look at it now at the end of the year is that somehow I made more money this year than I did in all of 2017. And keep in mind, in 2017, I was full-time employed from January 1st through, I think it was about mid-October. So almost the entire year, I was fully employed at a full-time job. And yet, this year, even with all the jobs I've had and all the ups and downs, I've somehow managed to come out about $6,000 ahead of where I was last year at the end of the year. And I do still have one more paycheck that's coming in, I think on the 28th or 29th. So, I mean, I'm amazed. And I had no idea that that was the case. I've just been nose to the grindstone all year and just trying to figure out, okay, the next bill comes out up in 3 days. Where am I getting the money to pay for that? And I've just been concentrating on the next thing coming up. But when I looked at Mint, probably about mid-November, I realized I'd already made more than I made last year. So I really do see that as a positive, and I think that for next year that's obviously going to increase even more. Now, the third thing that I see as a huge positive is that I diversified my income. This is a huge safety net issue for me because if you guys have watched my videos in the past, like when I got fired in 2013 from Abercrombie and whatever happened last year at my other job, because I still don't really know the answer to that, both of those cases I was just left without anything, without any way to make money, and really without much of a safety net at all. And that has been a big priority for me, is to never be in that kind of situation again. That I want to have my income coming from multiple sources so that if something happens with one job, then I can rely on money coming in from other jobs. And so it has changed throughout this year, but as of right now, I am working for Lyft as a recruiter full-time. I work part-time at Target, part-time at Whole Foods, and then yeah, I've got a couple of small things too on top of that. But, and I'm just going to announce this to you guys here, I actually did also get a new full-time job. I'll give you more details about that later, but that's going to start on January 2nd. So I have this income coming in from quite a few different sources, and I'm so relieved to have that because it basically makes it easier to negotiate for a job because I'm not so desperate for needing something. I also can stand up for myself more if something does go wrong, because I know that if I do happen to lose that job because I addressed an issue, then I can just increase my hours at the other jobs, or at least have that money from the other jobs still coming in and not be just completely screwed. So this is a big thing for me. And if you watch my monthly budget reviews, I always go over at the end of the month where my income sources came from and what percentage of my income came from each source. But in my December 2018 budget review, which should go up the first week of January, I'm going to do sort of a special end of year episode where I look at December's, but I'm also going to look at year to year. So I'm going to compare all of the income sources for 2018 versus all of the income sources for 2017 and basically compare those, but you also get to see for the entire year how my income came from all these different sources. Those three things are what I consider my big wins for the year, but I do also have some small wins as well. The first of that is that I started saving for my emergency fund again. I hadn't been able to save toward that since January of 2017. And what happened was when I started working at Target in July, I started putting $1 per hour worked of that income toward my emergency fund. And I also started paying $1 per hour worked to basically pay back myself for all that time I should have been saving and I couldn't. So I'm working on paying that back to myself, plus I'm paying from here on out. I know that doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense to me, and if you watch my budget reviews, maybe you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. The second thing is I started contributing to retirement again. And this is something that is not super high on the priority list, but it does help on taxes. And with me being 33, I do need to focus more on this. With my particular debt situation, you know, Dave Ramsey's baby steps wouldn't work, because if I were to save up my emergency fund and then pay off all of my debt, I would be like 150 years old and have no retirement saved. So this is something that I have to do concurrently with the level of debt that I have. So this is something that I started doing when I started the job at Whole Foods, which was in October, late October. And it's just a simple, I think they're taking 3% out. There's no match, but at least I'm putting something away. And the storage unit. This is the third small win, but oh my God. This is just a huge burden lifted off of me to get this done. If you guys remember the story, basically I inherited a storage unit from my mom, which does have some of my stuff in it, but it's mostly hers. And first of all, she lied to me about paying it, and it wasn't paid in full at all. And so I had to end up paying off something like $400 or $500. And then once I got it paid off, there was some stuff that came up with me, and I got behind on paying it, and it again got like $400 and some past due. That was in, like, I say July maybe, that it was at that point. And I was paying basically a little more than 2 payments for it per month up until I finally got it paid off in November. The effect of this is basically that I am no longer paying $150 a month in a payment toward that. I'm paying $65. And so just having that extra money available to use and not have to worry about this thing possibly getting sold off or whatever, then that is huge for me to have that much extra money. But also, when I do get my car fixed and I'm able to go down there, it's going to give me the opportunity that I can sell a lot of the items that are in it, which are, it's mostly furniture from older apartments that doesn't fit in my new apartment, so I probably would just be getting rid of those items. And so far the plan is to, whatever I make off those are going to be extra payments to my small credit card. And then finally, my last win of the year, small win, is that I cut things out of my budget. This is something that, I mean, is really something that everybody in this community does, but it's not really something that I'd ever done because I never really had extravagant expenses. And I mean, I have a cheap apartment. I really don't spend money on anything but food and, when I absolutely have to, clothing. But I had some things that I had set up when I had a full-time job back in 2016 that in the spring of 2018 I finally got around to realizing that, hey, I'm in a different situation now and I should cut this. And that started with my business expenses in May. Business expenses being for driving Uber and Lyft. I finally cut a couple of things out because I'm like, you know what, I kind of need this, but I really just can't afford it. And so I cut a couple things out there, and that got me thinking that I could also do that with my personal budget. And one of the first things I cut was Netflix, and then the second thing was internet at home. And I did eventually cut some other things out, like, for example, shopping exclusively at Walmart for groceries, which cut my grocery budget by about $50 a month. And I have continued to try to find ways to make things a little bit cheaper. The next one coming up will be in March 2019 when my cell phone bill drops by $28 a month. So I am continuing to work on this, but I consider that a little win because, you know, I am making my monthly expenses lower and overall just sort of improving my cash flow so that I can live a little bit more comfortably. Not in that I'd be spending money on things, but just that I'm not constantly, you know, making sure I have enough money in my account. It just makes things a little bit easier, and also gives the opportunity that I could make maybe sometimes a little extra payments toward things. Now, with that said, I do have some fails for the year, and I only had 2 of them, which surprised me. I thought I'd have more fails than wins this year, but when I actually think about it and look over everything, I've actually done pretty well, all things considered. But my biggest fail of the year is that back in the spring, maybe it was actually like January or February, I took out a credit card. And it was because I was completely dependent on an Uber and Lyft income, and I had a repair that had to be done to the car, and I had no way to get the money. So I did open a credit card. I think it had a $1,000 credit limit, and I spent about $500 of that on the car repair, and then I did use it for some other things, which got it up to about a $900 balance. So that is obviously negative. I'm obviously also not in that particular situation anymore, and I'm working now on getting that card paid off. But at the same time, there is a little bit of a silver lining to getting that card, and that's that as of November, they did increase my credit limit. So even though I'm not going to use that additional available credit, it makes my credit score a little bit better because it shows that I'm using an overall lower percentage of my available credit. And then the other thing, and this is kind of something that's out of my control, but I do have 3 IRAs, which someday I need to consolidate, and I have a couple other small retirement savings plans, and some of them are invested in target funds, and there's a couple of accounts that are in individual stocks that are that I'm invested in, and the market has just been terrible over the last few months. I think December especially, but I've lost $300 or $400 overall because of this. Now, of course, you know, the immediate reaction would be like, well, get out of it. But of course I can't do that because there are commissions involved in selling, but also the worst possible time to pull out of the market is when things are bad, because then you pretty much just lost that money. If you just ride it out, eventually it'll come back up. And that's what I'm going to do. I think I actually will, at least the individual stocks I'll get out of, but I'm waiting till they go back to up to what they were, and you know, that might be a year or 2. So with all that being said, overall, 2018 has been a very stressful, very long year. But at the very end of it, I still somehow pretty much came out ahead. And I do have a guarantee of a new job in 2019. That starts on January 2nd, so it's just a matter of getting ready for that, and then scheduling my other jobs around it, and once I get into the swing of things, figure out how my budget looks. But it will be definitely better than it is now. And I will be making a separate video probably first week of January where I'll have my 2019 financial goals, where we can talk about that, and I'll speculate on some things that might be happening financially during 2019. Other than that, if you guys would just check out everyone's channels down below. They're linked in the description. Wendy Valencia is there, who hosted this collab, and quite a few other frugal and financial YouTubers that'll be making a video on the same topic. So if you want to see how everybody else did for the year, check out those channels. I will have a couple more videos coming up for you guys soon. I finally got a couple days off because of the holidays, so I should have time now to actually get some things uploaded. I'm going to have job searching part 6 up very soon. In fact, it might be probably a day after this video is uploaded. And then I will have my December budget review, and I'll have my 2019 financial goals. So if you're not subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe so you get notifications when those come in. And thank you guys for watching.